Welcome to Dear Asian Americans. I'm your host, Jerry Wan, and welcome to the Asian American Dreamer series brought to you by Toyota. As a proud sponsor of those who dare to dream, Toyota isn't just settling with having them as words on a page. The stories of these Asian Americans need to be seen, heard, and supported. As a title sponsor of this initiative, Toyota is going to ensure that this happens in every way possible. We hope these 10 stories will inspire you to chase your own Asian American dreams.
Part of me says, keep working. The other says, keep dreaming. This is day one of the dream taking over. No more hiding my uniqueness. This is day one of me being 100% me.
Welcome to Dear Asian Americans, everybody. We are excited to continue our conversation with the dreamers in our community. The Asian American Dreamer series, brought to you by Toyota. We're focusing our conversations on those of us who have dreamt to do a little bit more or something different than what we were taught to believe or that we thought could be possible for ourselves. Today, we are joining our coach, or friend and coach, Mike Payo, here in Riverside. He is the head basketball coach of the men's program here at UC Riverside. And we're going to talk to him about how he ended up becoming a basketball coach of a Division I program, the zigs and zags in his life that he's faced, and as also a dreamer himself, but also a coach and a leader of young men in his program and the local community, how he sees about the different ways that we can also encourage others to dream as well. And so, Mike, I feel like this is a welcome back, and we'll explain that in a minute, but welcome to the show.
Oh man, I couldn't be more honored to be here. This is very cool. I'm blessed to be where I'm at, and I'm just thankful to be in a place that I can share and hopefully inspire others.
Awesome. And I said welcome back because you technically have not been on an episode of the show, but we featured your story and your photos that Emmanuel Han took of you during the Asian American campaign about 2 years ago on our Instagram page. And so that's how we became friends. And we were just talking, we do actually have other real life mutual friends from our past lives. And so you, a Filipino American man, are the head basketball coach of a Division I NCAA men's basketball program. That's rare. How does that? How's that? How did that happen? I guess because did you always want to be a basketball coach? I know you didn't go into coaching or athletics directly out of school either.
Yeah, it's more than rare. It's I'm the first and only ever Filipino American and full Asian heritage. I'm the first, and now there's a second half Japanese at Portland State. A friend of mine, Jace Coburn. Yeah, I've just been very lucky to a certain extent to land in such a great spot. But I did have a passion for coaching at a young age. When I was funny enough, when I was 15, 16 years old, I was in high school, and I started helping out my dad coach my little brother, and just kind of assisting him. And my dad always coached us growing up. And then when I was at college at UC Santa Barbara, I would work in the basketball department. And one of the gentlemen that ran one of the intramural departments asked me if I wanted to coach 7th and 8th grade boys and 7th and 8th grade girls at a local middle school in Santa Barbara, in a place called Hope Ranch, which was very wealthy. And that's how I got my start. I was 19 years old, coaching 7th and 8th grade boys, and one in the winter, and then 7th and 8th grade girls in the spring, and that's actually where it started. Never did I, in a million years, did I actually think that this would be my profession. I always wanted to be a businessman or a lawyer, or I love Jerry Maguire. I wanted to be a sports agent. So I definitely wanted to be in sports in some way, but I was more thinking the business path. And there's a lot of years in between of how this happened, but I coached high school basketball for 9 years, kind of as a side hobby at age 21 to age 30. But during that time, I was also in the business world. And the stroke of luck, the real estate business that I was in, we had a crash in 2007 and 8, and we survived. But I was going to NYU to get my master's of real estate and wrote letters to all the college basketball coaches in New York City, and I got one response by a guy named Kyle Smith, who was just got the head coach job at Columbia University in the Ivy League, and volunteered for him for 2-3 months, and he offered me a job, but there was a caveat. I had to give up my real estate company and not go to NYU to get my master's and start at the bottom. And, at that point, this had become a dream of mine. I'd seen other coaches in the Division I level do it, and that had come from the business world, and I thought that this was my shot, and I gave it all up. Luckily, I made some money in the real estate that allowed me to chase this crazy dream.
That's incredible. What gave you the conviction to say yes, right? Because you had a successful business career, you were going to school, giving that up, again, like you said, at the bottom, unpaid or lowly paid, at a school at Columbia, great academic school, but that's not, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. You know what it was? The funny thing is I was volunteering there and still planning to go to NYU. And he asked me, he's like, would you be interested in this position, the lowest man on the totem pole, called the Director of Operations? And I started asking him questions, and I didn't say yes with conviction right away. And the next day, this was in the middle of summer, July of 2010, he calls me and he's like, I decided to offer it to someone else, but thanks. And that moment, I was crushed, thinking I just lost my one chance to be a Division I basketball coach. 3 weeks later, one of the assistants called me, hey, I think that guy that took your job is getting another job, a Division II head coach. And a couple days, within that next 2 days, Kyle Smith called me again, and without even, obviously no hesitation, I said yes. It was August at that point. He's like, okay, good. You got to move here in 3 days. We knew it. We're starting, season. You got to drop it. Like, you can't go to NYU. So I think thinking that I lost the one opportunity that I had to accomplish a dream, that was something that had became a dream. It wasn't a dream when I was growing up. Right. I didn't know that I could do that. Or for a guy that did not play college basketball, I didn't know that this was a possibility. But I jumped in. He ended up hiring me, lowest man on totem pole, and kind of worked my way up from there over the next, what is it? I don't even know. That was 2010, so I became a head coach in 2020. So 10 years before I became a head coach.
So, we just talked about the lack of visibility or representation for especially Asian folks within, professional sports, collegiate sports, especially at the men's basketball level at Division I. We also know, at least, we've had folks like Marshall on the show, Marshall Cho, another basketball coach at the high school level. There exists a community of guys, men, women who support each other. Talk to us about sort of that support system that exists to provide not only tangible support through job introductions, but also sort of that camaraderie that you build in a environment where you don't really see, not to say that people are working against us, but talk to us about that community that exists.
It's funny, I always talk to my wife, Caroline, and I throw out different examples. I'm like, would you be willing to move to Portland if that job, 2 years ago I interviewed at Portland, University of Portland, or Hawaii, but I don't ask about maybe the New Mexicos, or like that there's a certain, I guess, area or community that'll accept an Asian coach. I really think there's certain communities that aren't ready for it yet. In 2012, I started, and Marshall was there. Marshall Cho was there at our very first meeting. I started the Asian Coaches Association, and that was the goal, was to just build a community just so that we could network with each other, but also support each other. There was already the Jewish Coaches Association, which was very powerful, which my boss at the time, Kyle Smith, and my coworker, Kobe Altman, were part of. And they're the ones who encouraged me to start the Asian Coaches Association. So the first meeting, I've told the story a bunch. We had 14 people there, 6 Asians coaches, and then the rest were the Columbia staff just supporting me. But this organization now, we get about 150 to 200 people show up at every event that we have. And there's probably about 25 to 30 Asian coaches on the men's side in college basketball. Now on the women's side, as this, we have two sides to it. We have the women's side, and it's run by our vice president, Steve Yang, who's an assistant coach in Division I basketball on the Asian, on the women's side. And you'll find that there are nearly 100 Asian women coaches. Oh. So it's really interesting. But yes, like you look at it from the men's point of view, we are not comfortable for a lot of coaches. They just don't see it, whatever the reason may be, right? Like we can really delve deep into that, and really, I don't know what the answer is, but they don't see us. They also don't see us. There's not as many Asian players right now. So whereas the women's side, the fact is there are a lot more Asian women players, and thus there are Asian women coaches. So I don't really have the answer. I do know it's absolutely a factor. And how I broke those barriers, I'm really thankful to a guy like Kyle Smith, who didn't see barriers in hiring me and giving me a shot. I also think you have to produce.
Right.
Like, you have to be good at your job. And so I think, the truth is, like, that's what I tell all the young Asian coaches. I was like, you got to kick butt. You got to be aggressive. This is an aggressive business. The African-American coaches, the white coaches, they are aggressive. We have to be more aggressive. That's kind of my main theme with our Asian Coaches Association. And part of that comes because I did have a business and sales background. So just like you did. And to understand that, hey, the way this thing works is you do got to put yourself out there and be more aggressive. You do got to take chances and take risks. Trust me, my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, you're running a real estate company, you're CEO of a real estate company for 7 years, and you're going to make $40,000 in New York City, start at the bottom, as what? Director of operations. So you're dealing with that, the family structure. But one of my favorite movies is Boiler Room, because there's a scene where Ben Stiller goes like, F you, mom and dad, like, I'm gonna be it's basically going for your own dreams. And my parents, in the end, have always been super supportive, and my dad has always told me to go for my dreams, and I think that's why I've been willing to take some of these risks.
There's so much in what you just shared, Mike, because I think the opportunities that, one, are rarely afforded to us is one problem, but as you mentioned, there is a real limitation of options based on where we're welcomed. I had similar thoughts and conversations with friends coming out of business school where, other friends would say, hey, I want to go work in, rural Wisconsin for this CPG company or whatever. And for many, not just Asian folks, but many students of color, it's like, I don't know if I would thrive there.
Right.
I don't know if I'd be welcome there. And it's not a reflection to say that the organization was a bad place,
sure.
But locally, if I have to raise my family there, if I have to raise kids there, is that a place where somebody that looks like me and you can thrive? And basketball coaches are a completely different story because you're public. You're always, being criticized or praised depending on how the games go.
Definitely.
And you have a lot of constituents. You have administration, you have your team, you have their parents, you have students, you have, the industry. And so, I think Riverside perhaps, what better place, right? The
Absolutely.
Student population here, there's great diversity and a lot of representation from Asian folks. Great community here. Riverside is, again, as a city, as a region, very diverse.
Yep.
So how has that, what was your recommendation in terms of, we think about these dreams as independent things, and sometimes we all buy into the hustle culture of, if you can dream it, you can be it. And it's not, because it takes not only a village, but it also takes the right environment, a physical environment sometimes, for us to realize that dream. And I'm curious, what, other than, what other things helped you believe in that dream? Because going from Columbia to here, again, with less options, or options that we don't have the luxury to have considered equally, landed you here in a pretty good spot.
That's such a great question. And the thought process behind it is something that I absolutely study. And it is, number one, everybody has a brand. And number two, fit matters. So when after Columbia, I went to a little school in North Carolina called Campbell University. And I spent 3 years down there, and they accepted me. I was the only Asian in town, and then my future wife ended up moving with me. And they accepted us. But would they really hire an Asian coach? Probably not. So when Kyle Smith got the San Francisco job, they may have. I don't want to put that on Campbell. Maybe they would have, and they treated me great, and they treated my wife and I great. But we were in a little town called Buies Creek, North Carolina. So when Kyle Smith left Columbia to go to University of San Francisco, he hired me back. And obviously that fit mattered. And then one of our friends, David Patrick, who I own, and there's only three guys who've taken a chance on an Asian assistant coach. My boss at Campbell, Kyle Smith, and David Patrick got the job here at UC Riverside. And the fit, not only the fit because of the diverse population, but also the fit with this particular head coach, who was known as a recruiter. And he needed, my brand in coaching was organization, a guy who could coach, but really like the details and organization of the overall program. And it was a perfect fit for me to go with David Patrick, who was known as a recruiter. Coaches get hired because they can recruit. my brand wasn't recruiting, even though I can recruit.
Yeah.
But my brand was what probably the stereotype of an Asian, whether it's a professional or and in this type of profession, coaching, it was being organized, detailed, being able to put the film together, and one of the things I've kind of gone with, I've gone the other way with some of my, again, young Asian coaches who ask me, I'm like, just accept it. If people want to tell you you're organized, whatever, but the brand, my brand fit Coach Patrick's brand, and he utilized my organization skills to help build this program at UC Riverside. Now the fit as far as the area and the diversity of this university absolutely helped. Now I'm in a place where like I could be the head coach here at UC Riverside. I could be the head coach at University of San Francisco. Obviously it's a extremely, I mean, at the time. So those decisions matter, and being thoughtful about that absolutely matters. Like fit, where do you fit?
Yeah. And fit goes to both ways, right? I think sometimes we always think about how do we fit in with the existing culture, which a lot of the times wasn't really built for us, right?
Yeah.
But then we have to also be really, deliberate and intentional, saying, well, does the culture fit with me?
Yes.
Right? Do I care to have that brand associated with me and not just the other way around? And I do think that you being at Riverside here, while you build your career even more, so that maybe with more recognition or with more respect or with more success, that other places will welcome you in a different way, right? Because depending on where we are, in our careers, the acceptability changes. I wish I didn't have to say that, but it does matter, right? Because we're judged by our resume, but even perhaps with an unfortunate level of scrutiny that doesn't exist for other people.
Yeah, I tell this joke all the time now that when I was an assistant coach or trying to make my way as an assistant, nobody would hire an Asian assistant coach. It was very hard for me to get jobs, and I was part of a winning program at Columbia, part of a winning program at Campbell, part of a winning program at San Francisco. What's funny is when I became a head coach, which was a fortunate turn of events, but when I became a head coach, now being Asian American was this impetus for so much publicity. And like I told you, after that first year, I was a finalist for the Portland job, and I was 14-8 here at UC Riverside, and I was like, I wouldn't even hire me. I don't have enough experience to, but it was. It's and again that goes to even just saying that, which is something that I try to coach other Asians. Is like we're trained to be humble. We're so trained to be self-deprecating. And that one thing Kyle Smith used to tell me is like, Magpio, he'd always yell. He's like, stop with the self-deprecating. Like he was always coaching me to be more aggressive and be more. But you nailed it on the head. Like it. It's very interesting to think about those things.
So we've talked a little bit about sort of what your parents thought about the dream, and I think for many of us, we think about that. And I turned 40 this year. We both have 2 kids. Like we think about sort of what our career decisions mean in terms of the sacrifices that our parents made, and we don't want to disrespect their sacrifice, but we're also here to chase our own dreams. How do you view that, and how do you want to raise your kids to balance doing right by us? Does that even matter anymore for us, or is our job to provide purely the opportunities versus them chasing dreams in a world we don't even know what that might look like?
Yeah, I think my parents were no different than most I guess the stereotype of Asian parents that come from other countries. I mean, they wanted us to be doctors, lawyers, wanted all of us to go to UCLA. I'm one of 5 kids. When I decided to go to UC Santa Barbara, did not get into UCLA. They were so disappointed. The one thing I'm very lucky. My dad, in every birthday card, he was always saying, chase your dreams, you can accomplish anything. And so I'm really fortunate that stuck with me, and they were encouraging and motivating in the way that they parented me. And now that they've gotten older, all 5 of their kids are successful in whatever they do, and happy. I think as you get older and you see that, I would love to end up where my parents have and raised a great family of 5 kids, and all of them are successful and have kids themselves. Thinking about my 2 kids, gosh, it's just a different world. I want to steer them in the right direction, just like I would with my players. Yeah. But in the end, I do want them to be happy. But the truth is, of course, I want them to be happy doing something that's purposeful with their life. So I don't know. I'm learning every day. I got a 2.5-year-old as my oldest and an 8-month-old, so we'll see. I know I'm already way softer than I thought I was going to be. My dad was the strictest dad ever. My parents were strict, and surprisingly, I'm pretty strict and stern with my team, but when it comes to my boys, I can already tell. My wife is shocked at how soft I am. So I wonder, it's easy to say, yeah, I want them to be happy, but of course I want them to be successful and live a purposeful life.
That's beautiful, man. And when we talk about dreams, sometimes we have to visually see it and know that other people have done it.
Yeah.
And that is so critically important. And so, kudos to you for starting the Asian Coaches Association, because it's not only being visible, but it's making it easy, right? Because it's about access and opportunities to make it tangibly more accessible for the next guy. And truth be told, we have to unfortunately prove that this is a financially viable career option so that young people can believe, hey, it might take some sacrifice, what job doesn't, but if I stick it out, I can go, take care of my family and not, have to sacrifice that so that I can chase my dream. And so I think what you're doing here is fantastic. And, we've been friends for a while, and we see each other's, videos and photos of our kids and family. And just the fact that you're always so present with your kids and in a challenging seasonal calendar as you have. We're sitting here right outside your arena, and working around practice and all that. It's incredible. What is perhaps you're living your dream, as you said, but where does that dream go? How do you want to continue leaving an impact and legacy, not just for your kids, but for other, Asian coaches or folks who see you as an inspiration?
Yeah, I'm living the dream because I'm living a really fulfilling life. So every single day, for example, today I have 15 players on the team that needed my leadership and the coaching staff's leadership because we got our butts kicked last game in the middle of a good season. And for the last 48 hours, I've been racking my brain and reading and trying to figure out how to lead and talking to my wife about it and kind of game planning with how I was going to attack today. And I thought the guys had a good response. So I live a really fulfilled life because of that. I think that because I kind of focus on purposeful ventures. First, I started with this coaching venture, which I had 7 years in, I was talking to my best friends going, and I'm in North Carolina going like, did I make the right decision? What am I doing here? Things worked out, and I am living the dream, and thus the Asian Coaches Association was founded and has grown. And I don't put like a ton of time, but it does take some work. But it definitely, I feel so much pride to see my buddy Marshall Cho get a head coach job, a big time head coach job at Lake Oswego, or Jace Coburn become the another Asian coach at Portland State, and to see some of the Anthony Santos at Fullerton become associate head coach last year, and so you're seeing progress, and so I got a lot of pride in that, and I think that drives me to hopefully find the next purposeful venture and continue to move our community forward.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. We're in thick of your season, and so genuinely be grateful for you making time. I know you're not done in life, in an impact, and in where you're going, and so glad we could meet and share some time together. And I'm just gonna say it. We'll see you in March in the tournament, because
let's do it.
Gotta go.
All right, man. Let's do it.
Mike.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Asian American Dreamer series on Dear Asian Americans. We hope that this story and the other ones that we share in our series have inspired you to identify and chase your own Asian American dream. And Toyota will be along with you all the way to make sure that happens. We want to thank Toyota for sponsoring our series, and to learn more about the great work that they're doing in our community, visit toyotausa.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Jerry Wan, your host of Dear Asian Americans, wishing you health, safety, and happiness.